Hello, I am back. This is Carla Marie, and I am here for our third and final um, workshop in this series. And today we are talking about unschooling with learning differences. But I'm going to wait just a few moments so that you guys can get your favorite tea, coffee, whatever it is that you want to drink, and snacks, and sit and chill with me for the next 45 minutes because I look forward to sharing and just giving of myself and my ideas and my experience and answering questions and things of that nature. So I am just going to wait a few moments for people to log on. It is just 8:30. So I see a few people coming in. Come in, come in. Just going to wait just a few moments for you, and then we will go ahead and get started because I got a lot to share. And for those that are tune in late, this will be available here in our group as well as on my YouTube channel. So, just going to give you a few minutes to gather your things and get in the room. Then we'll get started. Come on in, come on in. I see you coming. Just waiting a few moments because this is a super, super important conversation today. So I really didn't want to get started until we had several people on. Although I know many will come back and watch the replay, and that's fine too. But you can't get your questions answered live. And your questions might be the same as someone else's. So gonna wait 2 more minutes. Well, not even that long. Maybe 1 more minute, and then we're gonna get started. I promise. Hope your day has been going well and that you are doing well no matter where you are in the world. This group is made up of people from all over the world. So I don't know what season you're in, but I just pray that all is well with you and your family on this wonderful learning journey that we have been blessed to experience, right? All right, couple more moments. Okay, let's get started. Woohoo! Well, for those that do not know me or that are new to the group, we get hundreds of new followers every week when I do these sessions. And so I want to introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Carla Marie Williams. I am the founder of this group, Homeschool Gone Wild Unschooling Community, which is named after my very first book, Homeschool Gone Wild. I have written several books, but three of which are focused on unschooling and homeschooling. And you can see the picture of those at the top of the page. If you are new to our group, I would suggest that you take a look at the pinned link in at the top of the page as well, our welcome post. That will give you more information, resources, where you can get my books, all of that good stuff. All right. But again, my name is Carla Marie Williams, and I am the wife of 26 years and the mother of 6 inspired unschoolers, 2 of which launched into the world doing what they loved in 2020. And I have 3 more that are launching in January 2024, which will leave me with 1 child still unschooling. And so lots of changes around here. I'm trying to wrap my brain around all of this, having adult children and young adults in the home. So, but that's a little bit about me. What we're going to be talking about, you should know this. We've been learning at home together for 15 years, over 15 years, but the last 11 plus years have been unschooling. And so we've been doing this for a very long time. And we've been pretty successful at it, which is why I love sharing with other people alternatives to the, checklist driven, way of learning, that natural learning, allowing your kids to lead in their learning journey can work for many families. And so that's why I do these sessions, to kind of help you see how it worked for us, how it works for thousands of other families, and how it can work for you too. So, we're going to be talking about unschooling with learning differences today. There are a few disclaimers that I would like to make. Number one, I am not a doctor. I am not a professional in this particular area. I am not trained to diagnose your child or tell you what your child may be dealing with based on, symptoms and things of that nature. I am simply a very, very passionate mom that wants to see her kids thrive regardless of the challenges that they have. And I want to share that with you, what has worked for us and what has not worked with us. So that's what this session is about. I'm not trying to tell you what your kid is dealing with. I'm not trying to medically suggest anything. So I want to make that very clear that I don't stand in that position to do that. I'm just sharing as a passionate mom to other parents who may need help or direction in this particular area. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So for those of you that say, your kids seem like they're, doing okay. I didn't know they had any challenges. Well, that's the point. That is the point, isn't it? That our children, when we remove them from school or decide not to send them in the first place, is that our children thrive for who they are, and that who they are is not the challenge that they have. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how we can separate those two things and help them thrive and build their confidence on who they are. So I'm going to be talking about several different challenges that we have dealt with. I will be talking about what worked for us and what did not work for us. I'll be sharing a little bit about some things that you can do if you have a child, say a child that is nonverbal or something like that, that you can still do to help them grow and learn and exercise creativity and even the gifts and talents that they have to bless the world, because they have them too. And so, but I will say that I do not have children with severe disabilities, or and let me say this, another disclaimer: titles, labels, descriptions go out of style and in style, or they change so frequently, it's hard to be politically correct. So I am going to apologize in advance if I say something that is no longer considered the scientific name of something, or if, what parents would call something versus what a professional would call something versus what the child or adult that deals with some of these challenges would call it, could be completely different. So I'm asking for your grace and your mercy in case I say something that is outdated, or hear my heart. I'm just a mom trying to help my kids and help you help your kids. So please hear my heart. Please give me grace tonight as we talk about this. Lots of disclaimers when it comes to this topic, but I think it's needed, because I don't ever want someone to say that I am trying to diagnose someone's child, or that I am sharing information that is offensive or something like that, because that is not at all my heart. So, in our family, we have had a series of challenges, and I call them challenges because that's kind of how we look at it. I mean, a challenge is not something that can't be overcome, right? A challenge in most situations, and a challenge is not something that dooms us or dooms our future. And so that's what I look at it as a challenge, not a wall that can't be torn down or a roadblock that's impossible to pass. It's a challenge. How can we help our kids through our challenges? So I'm going to list the things that we have dealt with among my 6 children. I do not use names and I do not use specifics because I protect their privacy. But our challenges have included dysgraphia. They have included dyslexia. They have included dyscalculia. They have included ADHD, ADD, PTSD, due to all of my children spending time in foster care before joining our family. SPD, ASD, um, or what some used to call Asperger's. I understand that that word isn't used anymore, but many still use it to differentiate. Um, so I know what I'm talking about, at least from a parent's point of view, okay? And so when you see us post about the things that our kids are achieving, they're pushing through these things when they're achieving these things. Not all of them. Some of them have more than one, some have none, but they're pushing through these things to achieve the things that they're achieving. So I don't ever want you to think, oh, you have all of this perfect scenario. It's not like that at all. Just because I don't share it, number one, because it's their business. Um, and number two, I don't think that you need that information to be able to celebrate something that someone achieves, right? Um, but I think it's important that we address our fears. That's what I want to bring home more than anything tonight. I think that the minute we get a diagnosis or we see something that may not seem mainstream or what we consider normal, whether it's a learning challenge or being on the spectrum, whatever the situation is, we instantly go into fear mode. And we think, oh my God, 30 years down the road, how are they going to do this? And how are they going to do that? And how are they going to live on their own? And how are they going to get a job? How are they going to go to college? We go through all of these things, really torturing ourselves, but we don't even recognize our kids pick up on that anxiety. They pick up on that fear. And what do you think that is feeding them? It definitely doesn't feed them confidence. It definitely doesn't make them feel like they can overcome whatever the challenge is. It doesn't make them feel like this challenge is possible, to, I wouldn't necessarily say eradicate, but that they can still accomplish their dreams and their goals and the things that they want to do in their future with this. All you got to do is Google, okay? How many very successful people, and success doesn't always mean wealth, but how many very successful people that we know of in Hollywood, in business, in government, have dealt with a learning challenge, whether it be dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. I hear it time and time again. How many major creatives in our world are on the spectrum that are changing lives through the work and the art and the things that they're doing? So what we need to do when we hear a diagnosis or when we see something that seems like it could be a challenge, we need to check ourselves first. And we need to determine how we are going to present this information and how we're going to respond to it, how we are going to help our kids respond to it, right? Because they pick up on our energy. And if we are worried and anxious and afraid and we're focusing so much on that, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, it's hard for them to have the faith and the courage to push past something if they see us, the people they look up to, panicking and afraid and making decisions based on that fear. So that's the first thing that I would suggest all parents do if they're dealing with any diagnosis or they're seeing changes in their children's behavior or how they take in information or how they learn, whatever the situation is. We have to deal with our fears first so that we can then help our kids do what they need to do to overcome whatever the challenge is. So, okay. Next. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so with that being said, we've dealt with all of these different challenges, and I will share in a moment exactly what we did and how we went about doing that, and how we made the decisions to do what we did with each individual child. So what's going to be important is that you pay very close attention. Pay a close attention to how your kid takes in information. Pay close attention to the things that they are trying to accomplish. I have people come to me and they're like, I wonder if my child has dyslexia because they haven't started reading and they're 6. Well, there are lots of different reasons why your child may not have started reading, and it may not have anything to do with dyslexia, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't either. What's important is that you recognize when your child desperately wants to do something, and they're frustrated by it, those would be telltale signs or red flags that there is intervention or some help needed. Even if it's just help from you, it can be very mild, and they could use some interventions right there at home, or if there's a need for diagnosis and greater intervention. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So paying close attention is going to be important. Do not freak out if your child is not reading by 6 or 7 years old. My kids read anywhere between 4 and 10. Yes, you heard that right. And those that were slightly older, not all of them, dealt with dyslexia. And so I was able to kind of head that off, because the reason I knew it was because they were trying. They wanted it really, really bad. And it was so hard for them. Now, if you have a kid that's not trying and they don't want it, I would determine whether or not they are avoiding it because it's hard and it's not something that they can carry through with, or if they're just not interested. So that's where paying close attention is important, right? So pay close attention to see, whether or not it's something you need to be concerned about or not. And just know that whatever it is, you guys can work through it. And you have to have that perspective so that your kid can have that perspective, because they're going to take on whatever fear and whatever perspective that you have. Okay? So that's important to remember. I don't care what a thing is called. Everything has a label. Everything has a name. I don't really care what it's called. All I care about is helping my kids overcome it, push through it, and accommodate them so that they can, share the brilliance and the gift that they are to the world. That's my main concern. So, it's my goal to help them manage whatever situation arises so that they can achieve their goals. And those goals will be different for every kid. So it's less about identifying the challenge and the label than it is about accommodating it, right? So we don't walk around with labels on our head, dysgraphia, dyslexia, all of that. That's not the point. That's not what we're here for, especially if we've removed them from a system that would do that would consider them their label, right? They replace their name with their ability. And we don't want that for any of our children, no matter where they fall when it comes to the challenges that they're dealing with. So our kids need to know that whatever the challenge is, that we support their goals and dreams and are committed to helping them get to where they want to go. How we approach labels. Okay, so when we've seen challenges, we have paid attention over a period of time. We have asked our kids, a series of questions to determine, their desire to carry out a task and whether or not there is frustration or just not a desire to do it at all. And if we see the frustration with reading, with math, with, doing any kind of calculation, then that's when we kick into gear. Now, when I say kick into gear, I don't mean sign them up for 15, doctor's appointments and get them diagnosed up the wazoo for 15,000 things. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, how can we accommodate this? How can they reach their fullest potential and perfect, skills that are really challenging? And you have some people that have, a mild version of dyslexia or whatever it is that your child is dealing with. And then you have others where it's pretty intense. It's pretty severe, and they need more intervention. So I'll tell you, in a moment how we dealt with each of the things that we've dealt with. I am going to vaguely touch other things, but I try to stay away from areas that I'm not an expert. Okay, I don't like talking about or writing about things that I don't know for sure. So I'm going to share with you what I know, and possibly send you in the direction of some other people that would know more in other areas. But how we approach the labels are going to be important. This is what it's called, and how can we help? How can we deal with this? All right. But we do not, under any circumstances, continually label or have them identify themselves as this. Okay? And that's important to know. All right? We don't make all our decisions based on that. And so, whether or not you want to get testing or an official diagnosis, there are some things to consider. There's a lot of people that are undiagnosed, especially adults that deal with challenges that were never diagnosed as a child, never knew they had them, then finally got diagnosed as an adult, and everything suddenly made sense, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known. I wouldn't have known something. I would have all my life I thought something was wrong with me, or whatever the situation was. I never fit in. I never thought like other people. Whatever the situation is, that they wish that they were diagnosed. That it depends for me. Okay, I have most of mine are not, but we know exactly what we're dealing with, and we accommodate it so that they can reach the goals that they have for themselves. So you have to decide if what you are seeing is obvious, and if you want and need testing and diagnosis. And no one can tell you that except for you. The parents need to make that decision. Testing is not a bad thing, as long as it is not something presented as a death sentence for their future. That's what bothers me with labels. That's what bothers me sometimes when you go in for one thing and you come out with 6 different diagnoses, and you feel overwhelmed, and you feel like, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to overcome this? When a lot of times that love, that passion, that courage, that drive, that ability and determination to find accommodations and ways for your child to learn and grow and mature, it's going to come from you. So keep that in mind. Focus on accommodation and success and not the label. Testing can be useful, however, especially if you have a kid that wants to go to college or wants to go to a tech school, or even is applying for a job. Oftentimes, if there are special accommodations that are needed for dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, anything else, if there are things, ADHD, if accommodations are needed to attend a program or to work on a job or to attend a college, then it would be important to get an official diagnosis, because that's the only way that usually companies or colleges will give you the accommodations that you need free of charge if you have an official diagnosis from a doctor. So that's something to consider too. Again, I'm not telling you to seek a diagnosis. I'm not telling you not to. I'm telling you these are the things to consider when deciding whether or not you're going to do that. The greatest key that I want to talk about today, is this. Ask yourself this: is my child's challenge all I think about? Is it all I think about? Am I up late at night thinking about this? Am I fearful about their future? Is it the deciding factor when it comes to everything we do and the choices that we make? Because when we think about that, when we think about doing those things, it is sending alarms to our children that, and obviously you want to be able to accommodate your kids, and yes, you want to think about it. But if it is all you can focus on regarding that particular child, then we're off track. We're off track. Because that child is more than ADHD. That child is more than, on the spectrum. They're more than ADD or SPD or PTSD or whatever the situation is. Their challenge is not who they are. That's not who they are. That just happens to be a blip in the program. That just happens to be something that sets them apart or makes them different, but it is not who they are. There are millions of other aspects of your kid, and so you don't want your relationship with your child or all of your choices when it comes to what they may be able to accomplish in the future to be based on that one thing, that diagnosis. Okay, I'm trying to drive this home because I see so much panic, so much fear. I get inboxes and phone calls and requests for consultations all surrounding kids with learning differences and their parents scared stiff. So if you wonder why I'm trying to bring this home, that's the main reason why I'm focusing on this. Kids should never feel like their challenge equals their identity or capability. Is your anxiety and fear projecting low confidence in your child? Ask yourself that and make a pivot. So here is the kicker. This is what you do instead. No matter what your kid's challenge is, and that could be, something mild all the way to something, pretty intense. Your focus, your energies, your determination need to be focused on what makes them a gift to the world. What are those gifts, those talents, those interests, those things that make them a gift to the world? And highlight those to the highest possible point. Yes, down here, we're working on the other things, right? We're working on dyslexia. We're working on, ADHD. We're working on these other things. We're doing what we need to do, even if it may require medication. If it may not, that is completely, I'm not telling anybody to do one or the other. We don't do it, but I'm not sharing that with anybody. My point is, all of those things that they're challenged with, yeah, you work on it. You don't just ignore them. You don't act like they don't exist. You work on it. But on the main stage of everything that they get the opportunity to experience is what makes them a gift to the world. Who this child is, not the challenge that they have. So work on the challenges and ways to accommodate their needs, but never make it the main thing. Never make it exactly, as if that is who they are. Because it's not the main thing. There's so much more. And then equip them with a toolbox. So a toolbox for any kid can be ways to cope with certain situations. For, a child of mine that dealt with ADHD, another dealing with ADHD, another dealing with ADD. What was important is they needed to be able to have tools like calendars and alarms and things of that nature that helped them function and helped them do some of the things that they wanted to do and accomplish. For other people, that might not work. So you got to untap what works and fill your kid's toolbox with the things that work, because the same things don't work for every person. And if you have, any challenges yourself as a parent, that what worked for one may not work for the other. But there is going to be something that you can untap and put in your kid's toolbox, so to speak. And that could be an intangible tools, and it could also be tangible tools like a calendar or alarms or, things of that nature. With one of our children that dealt with anxiety, one of the things that was helpful was figuring out outlets that could calm and bring peace and assurance and confidence when things get really hairy and scary. And so we came to the conclusion they could, go ride their bike. They could wrestle. They could swim. They could, sometimes video games was very helpful. But we made a list and created this toolbox specifically for each of them. How do I handle when things are too hard? Or how do I deal with this particular challenge? What is in your toolbox? So that brings me to talking about one of the things that you're probably wondering, like, what did we do? What are some of the things that we did? And I'm going to share those things. So when it comes to dyslexia, every kid is different. If you have a child with a mild case of dyslexia, um, then interventions may be more practice, more getting materials that are literally created for people with dyslexia. We used websites like Reading Eggs, um, and like repetition and lots of things that kind of helped. One of the main things that helped two of my children was reading short passages and tag team reading with us. And so, a book of words is like, oh my God, that's scary, for them. And so, one of them learned how to read by reading Minecraft manuals. The other one learned how to read by reading Garfield comics. So, but in both instances, there were short blurbs that they could focus on and take a rest before going. There wasn't a whole page of words just swimming around on the page. So that was very helpful. And so fact books and we had science and historical fiction comic books and graphic novels and things of that nature. We had the Bible in graphic novel form, all kinds of things that allowed them to be able to read, take in the information, not be overwhelmed by a massive page of words, and be able to understand, what they were reading. So that was very helpful for them. Um, Another thing that was helpful, again, I said, was tag team reading. If we were reading a very, a large text, so to speak, a paragraph, I would read a paragraph, and then they would read a paragraph. So they had the ability to rest in between reading, because it's exhausting when you're trying so hard to make out what seems really easy to someone else. It's exhausting. It takes a lot of mental energy, and so you have to understand, what try to understand it from their perspective, and not just be like, well, why can't you do this? It's things are working differently, and so you have to be able to accommodate that. When it comes to dysgraphia, this one was interesting, and I have one child that had it mildly, and one that had it, pretty extreme. And when it comes to that, what I have focused on with this is that our children, mine and yours, have a brilliance to share with the world. They have information and talent and gifts to share with the world. And there are more than one way to do that, right? So handwriting was very, very difficult. Some tasks like shoe tying and things of that nature are very difficult for them to carry out. And so there are lots of accommodations that we had, because I knew, I'm like, he is just off the charts, brilliant. I know that, and obviously I'm mom. I wouldn't say that, right? But he has so much to share. And so what we want to do is make sure that he has multiple ways to go about doing that. And so he began to teach himself how to tell stories through video, through PowerPoint presentations, through voice to text software. Even now, as a almost adult, he does all of his writing through voice to text software. And so did we work on the actual handwriting? Yes. But here's the kicker. There are some challenges that will present themselves for a very long time. It may be forever, but it doesn't mean it has to stop them from doing what they want to do, right? And so what happens is that if you open up all of these avenues for them to be able to share their brilliance in other ways, then they don't feel like their future is limited. And so we made sure that, writing in cursive to be able to sign your name, and, basics like that, and to be able to, fill out a basic application and things of that nature. but writing, physical writing, actually hurts. It hurts here and it hurts here. His hand cannot keep up with the speed of his mind. And so it was very important for us to find other ways for him to share his brilliance. He's an amazing storyteller, very creative, excellent writer. And when I told him, I think it was maybe 5 years ago, I said, you know how many writers don't, every writer doesn't write with a pencil or a pen. I said, nowadays, most writers, well, I don't know, I'm a writer. I don't write with a pencil or a pen. They write on a computer. He is very tech savvy. So the fact that it came to him that even though I have this challenge, I can be a writer. Bing! I was instilling confidence even though there was a challenge there. Even though the handwriting is still a struggle, he has other ways to share his brilliance with the world. And so that's what's important, right? We accommodate. We don't label. We don't say all day, every day, this is what you're dealing with. We accommodate and help them figure out how to bypass whatever wall is trying to keep them from the goal that they have for themselves, okay? So let's go to the next one with dyscalculia. I have had a child that had dyscalculia, and I'll be honest with you, I am ashamed to say that I did not see the signs. And it was because I was following, this was when we were doing very traditional homeschooling. I hated it. But anyway, we were doing that, and I guess I was trying to make all of my children, mathematicians, that I wanted them all to be 4 points in everything, right? And I felt horrible that I didn't pick up on it sooner, because math ended in tears and we thought it was just an aversion. I just don't like it. Half the planet says that they don't like math, right? But I think it's the way it is presented to us. It's the way that it's taught. It's not life applicable. It seems much more difficult when, in the way that it is presented in a schooling manner. And so what we did when we transitioned from traditional homeschooling to unschooling, we dropped everything, including math. And I think that the weight on her shoulders it all went away. And what ended up happening was that she became a writer. And between the ages of 13 and 16, published 4 books. And so here we are thinking that she needs to be this math whiz. And we thought she just didn't like math. But then we recognized, okay, there's a desire here to do this. There's a desire to succeed in this area. And no matter how strong the desire was, it was not happening. There's a disconnect here. We need to pay attention to this. Instead of me thinking, oh, you just don't like it and I'm going to force it down your throat. I hope this is making sense. I hope some bells are going off here. But we found out who she was. And it was magnificent. So I'm just saying that to say we have to focus on who our kids are, and their challenge is not who they are. It's just something that they're dealing with that we can help them overcome or accommodate, manage, so that they can get to where they want to go, right? ADHD, ADD, a lot of repetition, a lot of tools, actual tools, and grace. And none of our children have been on medication, but I know people that have, and it has been helpful. You may be yourself, or you may have children that are, and it has been helpful. You need to do what works for each individual child. There is no one prescription. There is no one decision that is good for every single family, every single child. So you have to determine that as a parent. SPD, Sensory Processing. Now this is interesting because it wasn't until one of my children was dealing with this that I realized that I myself deal with this. I thought that I was crazy as a teenager. Things that I could not handle, things that I could not, very simple things. I could hear 50 things going on at once. And it was too much for me. Or, something very simple as sitting at a table with my family, hearing them chew, I'm sharing this, it may sound funny, would throw me into a complete tantrum as a teenager. And I know that my mom was probably like, this child is insane. But there were so many situations like that, tactile issues and food aversion issues and all kinds of things. And when I started trying to understand one of my children, it began to help me understand myself. I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. So I'm pretty happy that I was able to recognize that I wasn't that wrong with me. I just had a challenge that I needed to work through and understand. That's what's most important, is that we understand how the challenge inserts itself into our kids' life and their learning, and how we can help them, as a result of that. So, I'll give you an example. I know there's a word that I said earlier, Asperger's, that they say is not really the word to use anymore. I guess it's all considered on the spectrum. But one of my children fell under that particular diagnosis, and I found myself for many years babying them. And my husband had to stop. He was like, you're showing them that they don't have what it takes to do what you're asking, or what it is that they desire to do. So that was hard for me, because like I said at the beginning of this session, your fears project upon your kids, right? Our fears are attached themselves because they're paying attention to all of our cues. And even though we're not saying anything, we may not even be saying the diagnosis or the label, but our fears are attaching themselves to our kids. And that's what was happening. And I noticed that it affected that child's confidence. And so I had to make sure that I didn't look at the spectrum or Asperger's as a, sentence to a lesser future. And because I didn't know any better, okay? So, grace, I didn't know any better. But what I had to make sure is that I understood whatever difference that my child was dealing with, whatever they were faced with, that I was going to be there to help them achieve their goals, regardless of what that was. And so when my husband really checked me and was like, you need to stop it, because you're affecting their confidence, you're affecting their ability to feel like they can accomplish what they want to do. And so, FYI, moving forward, this child is almost an adult in less than a year, and has just been asked to join the management team on their job, and is pre-adulting so magnificently to the point where you're like, what in the world was I worried about? Yes, and this particular child is not just on the spectrum, but also has several of these other things that I talked about. And so it is, it's amazing. It's amazing for you to step back and see what your kids are capable of doing, and not baby them or think that they can't accomplish something because of their challenge. There are lots of people that have overcome the exact same challenges that your kids have, that have reached their goals and their dreams, and your kids can too, right? So I just wanted to share that, because the kid is rocking it, and I don't know what my problem was. I was the problem. And sometimes that's the issue. Sometimes we're contributing to the problem. Instead of coming up with solutions, we're trying to figure out how to avoid them having to do certain things, right? So be solutions minded. Don't avoid the topic. Don't label, but don't avoid helping them accommodate their own needs and speak up for themselves and know what they need to be able to accomplish things. So I would like to say, if you have a child that has extreme needs, maybe it is extreme medical needs, maybe you have a child that is nonverbal, where they may need care for the rest of their lives, or semi-independent living situations. What is the best possible outcome? Go for that. Go for the best possible outcome for your child. Cheer them on no matter where they are, no matter what the challenge is, no matter how mild or how severe. What is the best possible outcome? How independent? What are ways in which I can foster independence for them? How can I help them have choices to make for themselves? How can I assist in an environment of joy, that they are enjoying life regardless of what their challenge is? What talents or skills do they have that can be used to bless others? And we all have them. Regardless of the challenge, we all have them. How can you increase their confidence in what they have to offer the world? How can you do that? You might have a kid that has dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia, but they might be a musical genius, or they might be an artist, or they might just love people so intensely that that is their gift. You have to be able to see through all of the murky waters and the diagnoses and things to be able to come to the conclusion they are here for a reason. They have something that no other human on the face of this earth has, and we're going to unlock that. We're going to untap that, and we're going to maximize it. What is the best possible outcome for my child, regardless of their challenge? What we think is minute or insignificant may very well contribute to enjoyment for them. So how can you create an enjoyable learning atmosphere for your child, regardless of the challenge that they're having? And then create environments at home, and even involve them in environments away from the home with others that may have similar challenges, that bring joy, spark creativity, movement, and ideas. So, I kind of hear in the background moms and dads that feel like their child's issue is much more serious than the ones that I've addressed today. And that's why I brought this up. Give them choices, independence, and joy, no matter what level their challenge presents. Those three things will help them be a blessing to the world, and it will help them live a joyful life no matter where they stand. And so I want to open up the floor. I hope that was helpful for you guys today, because my heart is full. I just feel so, I'm going to try not to cry. I'm sorry. I've been there. I understand your concerns. But with your passion and your determination, your kids can reach their goals. The best possible scenario can be their life reality, with you by their side and you cheering them on. And I want you to know that. I don't want you to be discouraged. I don't want you to be fearful. And I don't want you to limit what their ability is, nor do I want you to limit what your ability is to be able to help them. Because there is no one on the face of this earth that is more concerned and more vested in their future and what, and what their life looks like in the future, right? You got this. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have the passion and the love to be able to guide them and help them no matter how severe the challenges are. And so I want to open up the floor for questions before we end tonight. I am not seeing any questions or any comments in the comments section. So I'm going to wait a few seconds. If no one asks any questions, then we are going to go ahead and sign off. But I would just like to encourage you to know that you have what it takes to do this, and that your kids are blessed to have you. You made this decision to bring them home or keep them home in the hopes to give them something better than they would have gotten anywhere else. And hats off to you for that. And I know that you can give them something that no one else can, because love breaks through barriers that just instruction cannot, right? So, any questions? Any questions? Anybody? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so if you have questions later, if you rewatch this and you have questions later, what I would like you to do is put them in the comment section. If you're watching this for the first time, whether it's on YouTube, my Facebook fan page, or in this group, put the question in the comments and I will come and I will answer them via text through the comment section. So, because you might have the same question other people have. So, whatever your questions are, I will answer them that way. If I do not have the answers, I will try to find someone that can give you the answers because it's an important topic. It's an emotional topic, which is why I'm thinking we don't have any questions. But I just need you guys to know that although I don't know you, I love you, I understand you, I want the best for you and your family, and I am praying that this was a inspirational light bulb moment in your homeschooling, unschooling journey, and that you'll continue to be a part of this page and ask questions and give to others and things of that nature. But I don't see any questions, so I am going to go ahead and end here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching if you weren't here live, and I look forward to interacting with you later. Bye.